You're listening to Unmuted Love. Hi there, I'm C. Eshelman, and with 35 years as a marriage and family therapist and 25 years as a parent of 2 children I brought home from the foster care system, I want to welcome you here to Unmuted Love Podcast, the one place where nothing is off limits to say out loud about parenting children from difficult beginnings.
Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute, long it over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you want to be for a minute, don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you?
Sometimes it's real sweet around here, and sometimes it ain't so pretty, because this is 100% Unmuted Love. So let's go.
You'll be just
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unmuted Love. So excited today because I have a guest that I have known for a really long time. I've been a guest before for her, but she's just been around my world for so many years. I'm so happy to introduce her to you. So her name is Ginger Healy. You may know her because are you still the program director?
I am.
Yeah, the program director for the Attachment and Trauma Network. And that is just this incredible organization that I've been to the annual events off and on over the years, and I'll let you talk about that. But I'm just so excited to have you here and to have your expertise to share with our listeners who are generally parents who are on this journey to heal the hearts of their children while thriving at the same time. That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
So Ginger, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing just recently, and you can go all the way back if you want, but what's been going on?
Oh gosh, where to begin? Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. What an honor to share space with you and to share space with these parents, because I'm a parent and we'll probably get into all of that. So most recently, in fact, just this last week, my 3rd book was launched into the world, and I have been writing. I've got 3 books, and I have been writing mostly with the audience of educators to help them know how to help students in their classroom. I started off focusing my work on parents and quickly realized kids spend most of their time at home and at school. So reaching out to the educators has been a really powerful way to help kids. And so that's what my books are about. Strategies, tools, lessons, techniques on, well, if we say therapeutic parenting, I guess we would say trauma-sensitive classrooms. And so that's what my books are. And that's kind of been a big focus more recently.
Yeah, I saw recently the workbook, right?
Yeah.
To go with is it 15-minute focus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the 15-minute focus books. They're awesome.
I think that is about all of our attention span.
Right?
I mean, the whole goal is to have it be really accessible, not overwhelming. We don't have a lot of time or capability or energy, but we can do something powerful in 15 minutes. And so there's the book and then the workbook that really gets to the strategies. And then the newest one is for groups so that you can, as a school counselor or as a parent, really anybody could work with more than one child at a time, teaching these skills and modeling and scaffolding, this building of resilience and learning how to handle the tough things that get thrown our way.
Yeah, so I'm going to, of course, put the titles of your books in the show notes, but why don't you go ahead and say what they are, because they're perfectly titled, because you might have to read them because they're actually long titles.
I actually am going to read them. I do get a little bit of criticism that they are long, and you know what? I agree with that. How to say it all succinctly, I haven't yet figured out. But the first book is Regulation and Co-Regulation, Accessible Neuroscience and Connection Strategies that Bring Calm into the Classroom. And so then the workbook is the same title, except for I added Classroom and Beyond, because I really did want to circle back to the parents and have educators and parents be on the same page with everything that we're talking about. And then the 3rd book is 30-minute groups on managing big emotions, identifying triggers, developing coping strategies, and communicating effectively.
So, regulation and co-regulation.
Yeah.
It's sort of the answer to all things on some level. I mean, there's a lot of work to lead up to it, but when
Right.
it gets right down to it, it's just remembering, hey, this is the most important thing. And that's why parents are the most important people in the room, unless you're in the classroom.
That's
And
right.
then teachers are the most important person in the room, right? So
Amen. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love these titles. I love the format because they are short and sweet,
Yeah.
and they're right on the nose, right?
Mhm.
You know, because you're a parent and you
Yep.
needed to know these things. And of course, because you've been working at the Attachment and Trauma Network for such a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? Let's circle back to that because maybe some of our listeners don't really know about your organization. And it's so wonderful, partly because of how it's sprung up and partly because of what it brings to educators and parents. So,
Yeah.
share, will you?
Yeah, I love bragging about the Attachment and Trauma Network because it's kind of how I really came more so into this work. I had been working as a social worker and a therapist, and then I found that I needed to be more at home and more accessible to my children, but I also still wanted to work. And so working for the Attachment and Trauma Network gave me that flexibility of being able to work from home and work remotely and still put into practice everything that I wanted to do in my home and out there in the world. Attachment and Trauma Network was started by parents
Yeah.
who had adopted kids and went, oh my goodness, we need help. We don't know how to handle this. And I had been working as an adoption social worker. Even before that, I had adopted my son. I thought I knew a lot.
Mhm. Me too. Me too.
Right. And found, oh my goodness, I really need help and support. And so then I found the Attachment and Trauma Network, and they helped me and supported me. They were a group of moms who knew exactly what I was going through, and I could be very honest and vulnerable and say, this is so hard and I'm failing. And some days I just don't know if I can keep going, all those really hard things. And so they wrapped their arms around me. And then I found that I could not continue working the hours that I was working at the adoption agency and traveling as much as I was when I had all these little kids at home. And so then I started working for the Attachment and Trauma Network, and it just created this beautiful balance for me to support other families as the parent program director at the time. So we have a therapeutic parenting side. Then we also have the schools side where we create trauma sensitive school environments by professional development and by this annual conference, Creating Trauma Sensitive Schools Conference. And we've got a certification program. We have so many things going on there to really wrap around the child and wrap around those who wrap around the child. Personally and professionally, this is just such a passion because even years later, I still need help. I still need support. I am learning things all the time. The neuroscience field is just exploding, which is such a beautiful thing. I mean, we adopted our son in 2002, if I got the dates right. We applied for his adoption in 1999. But it took, 3 years for it to process. And so that was a long time ago. My son is 26 years old now, and we're still learning. We're still growing. We're still in the midst of it. And I have other kids in my home. Parenting is a journey. Anyone will tell you that. I'm still on the journey. I'm still learning. And I just love that there's so much more out there with regards to resources and support, like the Attachment and Trauma Network. Our services for caregivers are free. So you can reach out and you can access educational material. You can network to local therapeutic resources for your family. There's so many things that we can do to support you as a family. So I'm just proud of that. I really feel proud to work where I work and with the people I work with. And those people too. See, they are just amazing people. They're walking the walk, right? They're still in the thick of it too. So we get it.
I mean, that's why I still do what I do. I get it. And when people come to me, they're like, oh, you get it. I'm like, of course. Lived experience is everything.
It's
right?
Everything. Yeah.
You can go to school, you can take all the classes, you can do all the seminars, you can read all the books, and you can be really, really smart about it all. But boy, if you haven't lived it, there's something you just don't get. Right?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. What do you think that is, that little thing?
Well, I don't know, maybe a couple things. For me, this parenting journey has humbled me.
Oh, yes.
It has brought me to my knees, and I needed that, I suppose, or I'm better for that because it just helps me have so much empathy. So the empathy factor is so big because I don't have a magic wand. I don't have all the answers, but I can sit with you and I
Right.
can relate, I can validate. And I don't know that I could have done that years ago. At least personally, that's what I needed. One of the most miraculous moments in my life was when I met another mom. She had moved into my neighborhood and she had adopted children. And so we, of course, instantly wanted to physically connect and emotionally connect. And I was having a really hard day. And she said to me, you know, some days I don't like my kids. Some days I don't like their behavior. Some days I don't like my situation. And she just opened up this space for me to go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone and it's okay. Tomorrow is a new day. I don't have to be perfect. I can have these thoughts that I wouldn't have said out loud to anybody else for fear of judgment or for whatever, or they wouldn't have understood or they would have not known what to say. And I just needed to know that I wasn't alone and that it was okay not to be even close to perfect. And that was magical. That was just a magical moment. And so I can do that. I can do that. And that I think is one of the things that you were referring to. Like, what's the difference, you know?
I think for me, and this is probably equates to the same thing. It's that when somebody's telling me their most shameful truth about their lives, I have yet to find a situation where I couldn't also say, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too. Yeah.
It's so validating, right? To people to just honestly say, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I have been there. I have done that. I have said those things.
Yep.
I've felt those things.
Yeah.
I've been ugly. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm
And
still a good mom. I'm still a good mom. I'm still worthy and I can do better when I know better, of course, but it doesn't make me bad because I didn't
yeah.
know when I
Yeah.
got my kids, right?
Yeah, it's all of that. I also think it models to our kids, you don't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes and we can get through this together.
Mhm.
I'm not going to leave, even though some days it's really hard. And I don't want you to leave, even though you are on your hardest moment. Like, we're going to get through this together. And it might not be pretty, but just that, you know, because it's one thing to like say all the, yeah, me too. But it's also something to not get stuck there, to hold that space and to grieve or whatever you need to do. But then to go, okay, now what? It's that next step. And so I loved having that friend, that colleague, that coworker kind of guide me when I couldn't figure out the next step, or just pull me along when I needed a nudge, or to sit with me when I needed rest, whatever the need was.
Yeah. You know, I didn't realize that when you said the dates of when you brought your son home, that was the same year I brought mine home.
Really?
Yeah, and my kids were a little older than yours, so they're a little like a year older than yours because they were 2 and 3 when I brought them home. So I have one that's 27 and one that's 29, about to turn 30.
Yeah.
But back then,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this was true for you, but I was a therapist then, and I think you were too.
I was too.
Trauma was not a thing. I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't talk about trauma.
We didn't talk about it. It certainly was a thing, but it wasn't a thing.
Oh, right?
But I know exactly what you're saying. It wasn't a thing to talk about, right?
Yeah. And so, you know, you couldn't, like right now, if I Googled trauma, I mean, pages and pages and pages of references would come up, right? They may not be all that accessible. I may not be able to understand them. I mean, it may not be in my town, but I would see a lot. But 25 years ago, that wasn't the case.
No.
So we've come so far, right? And organizations like yours, I think organizations like mine are the same. We have just come so far. We've brought this information forward along with many other people now. And so, yeah, it is now a thing that we
Yeah.
talk about. It's a thing we talk about and we know about, and we
Yeah.
try to heal because we know now we can heal. Right?
That's exactly it. There's so much hope. And there's so much accessibility, through the internet to be able to connect with other resources and supports, whether it be therapy or something else, or other parents. And that wouldn't have been available either. But that's also one of the things that helped my son, was connecting with other adoptees so that he could go, oh my gosh, you do that too, or you struggle with that too, so that he didn't feel alone. And then I didn't feel alone when talking to other parents. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And actually, when I stumbled upon the Attachment and Trauma Network, I think I was still looking for more, just for more. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd read all the books, I've been to all the trainings, but I'm like, I'm looking for more. And what I found were those people who had lived experience. And that's the more I was looking for. And, that was awesome. So I'm so grateful, right, for finding that. And you've always been right there for me to sort of pay attention to and to learn from, and the network as well. And so I'm excited to have you here to share your story, but also to share the network with people.
Yes.
Because not everybody knows about this network. The services are free.
Right.
And I can't say that. I mean, I still charge a small amount for my online therapeutic parenting program, but it's still money.
Absolutely. And that's okay too. There's something out there, whatever need you have, we can figure that out and meet that need.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. I wanted to say that you do also have a podcast, right? It's called Regulated and Relational. Is that correct?
Regulated and Relational. Julie Beam, who is the director of the Attachment and Trauma Network, she came up with that name, and it just is so perfect because really that's the answer, right? Regulation is the answer, and how we regulate is through relationship. That's co-regulation. Oftentimes we'll also say attachment is the antidote, meaning relationship, safe relationship. That's how we heal. And so I'm really proud of the podcast too, because it just is full of really good nuggets. It's equal parts therapeutic parenting advice and research and information, and trauma sensitive school education information. So there's something for everybody. And Julie and I talk a lot and do our episodes. And then we often have special guests, experts in the field. And so it is a great resource, and it's obviously free as well. And so really proud of that.
Yeah, podcasts are sort of the thing right now. Everybody listens to podcasts all the time. I'm like, I am not an auditory learner, so I came to podcasts kind of late, but I'm learning how to learn from hearing. I don't know, it's strange. I'm so visual. So visual. Like, I probably couldn't even do this interview if I weren't looking at you. I know it's just going to be audio for those listeners who are here today, but I couldn't do it if I didn't have you right in front of me. So I love that it's a format, though, that a lot of people are really clinging to, because there's so much now of support, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of lived experience in podcasting, I think. So that's lovely.
Because it's an opportunity where we just get to share our stories. And that's a very powerful medium to just be vulnerable and be honest. And I remember more hearing a story than I do reading a fact. So we do a lot of storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So one of the things I was hoping to be able to wring out of you, I know this is in your books, but what are the 5 best regulation strategies, co-regulation, regulation strategies you think are in your book?
Boy, that's a great question.
I know, it's tricky. Huh?
Well, number 1, I will always say this, that you are the strategy, that you don't have to go out and buy products or use anything. Your presence, your attuned, warm, compassionate presence is strategically helping your child or whoever you are with become regulated and soothed and steady, right? It soothes the nervous system to have someone with you, just being there, just their presence, listening, their tone of voice, their cadence, all of that, looking in the eyes. That is just so powerful. And I say that as number 1, because how many times have I been in the car and I don't have my toolbox with me, or I can't think straight, but I can slow my breath and model that. Or I can just say, I'm here, whatever it is. It's just me. I'm the
Right.
strategy. So that would be number one. Moving on from there, I would say, well, it depends, because I think it's important to kind of parse out upregulation and downregulation.
Absolutely.
You know, when we talk about regulation, we use the word calm a lot, but we don't necessarily mean calm, right?
Right. It's a
Especially,
window. It's a
yeah,
window, right?
that's exactly right. Sometimes we need energy if we're tired, if we're zoned out, if we're having a freeze response, if we're just foggy brained. We don't need to calm down. We're too calm.
Too calm.
So we don't need a strategy that will calm us down. We need a strategy that gives us energy, that motivates us, that helps us achieve the task ahead of us. And so in that case, you need upregulation. And so a favorite thing is just anything that would make somebody laugh. So telling jokes, watching a funny video, that is upregulation, and done together, that's co-regulation, right? So silly things. There's so many fun things. I'm not being very specific. You can run with that, right? Anything that's going to make you laugh. So then if a child is in like a fight response or a flight response, and they do need to calm down, but I don't mean it like, calm down, be quiet, sit down, shut up. That is not what I mean. I mean, they need to.
Also won't work.
And it won't
Doesn't work.
It pours gasoline on the fire, which I have done before, right? So they would need down regulation. They would need something that soothes and comforts and makes them feel safe and pulls them out of that fight or flight response. And so in that case, it could be physical touch, right? It could be a hug, or it could be, I like to do tapping. You can't see me, but you can tap your arms.
Butterfly tapping.
Butterfly tapping, anything like that will calm and soothe. I like to play kind of like a game where I'm saying to a child, describe a favorite moment and tell me all about it. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? Who's there? And just let their imagination run wild, and it tends to soothe them, because they're in control and they can dream big. So boy, I'd have to really start thinking top 5, because I'm sure I've got it, but my mind's a little blank if I'm trying to be specific. What about you? Maybe that'll spark my mind.
Well, I'm kind of big on neurohacks. So
Ooh, I
probably
love that.
Yeah, probably my listeners know most of mine, but I love to do neurogenic tremoring. It's like a ragdoll shaking, right? You just shake yourself.
Yes, that's so good.
I really love that because kids think it's funny when parents do it, A.
Yes.
And B, they won't really do it, but they start laughing at you doing it. So you get regulated as the parent, and then the child gets regulated from laughing at you. So it's perfect.
So that is perfect.
And also if they do it, then they also get regulation that way. So that's one of my favorite ones. And then I don't know if you know this one, but it's squeezing the cartilage in your ear.
Yes.
Do you do that?
And
this is
pulling it,
my
right?
favorite. Yeah. And the bottom, pulling them. So start at the top and you try and unfold at the top with pinchers, and you act like it's made of Play-Doh, and you try to unroll it right into flatness. And you do that about 3 times from the top all the way down, and you'll start feeling the warmth in your brainstem.
Yeah, I do.
And then you do the little massage of where your ear piercings are in the lobe, if you happen to have that, around in both directions. And then I have headphones in, but if you stick your fingers in that top of the ear curl where shampoo gets stuck, that part? And you just sort of counterclockwise and clockwise massage around.
Oh my goodness.
And then one last time, pinch out that cartilage from the top all the way down. This is the best. I do this between every session. And then take a deep breath.
That's really good.
Can you feel that?
I actually can. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I was kind of nursing a little bit of a headache, and it seems to have kind of relieved that a little bit.
Oh, nice. So I don't know if you know this, but the ears have a direct connection to the amygdala.
Oh, yes.
So if you're in maybe in fight,
Yeah.
in particular, then what happens is your second and third vertebrae lock together as though you're in an actual fist fight. So if somebody hit you in the face, your vertebrae lock together so your neck doesn't get broken.
Oh my
So that
goodness.
keeps you stuck in a kind of fight stance. And so if you're in toxic stress, you have your second and third vertebrae are locked together in a fight stance.
Wow.
But this unlocks it. Right? So it's like, oh, okay.
That's really powerful.
I know, I
and
love that. That's
it's a
my
simple
fave.
thing too.
I have a client. I love this client. He's 13. He comes into my office and he's bouncing off the walls or whatever. I'm like, let's do the ears. And so he'll do the ears. He'll follow my direction, no problem. And before I know it, he's practically asleep.
Yes.
It's just like so calming to him. And he's rarely that calm, right? So when it happens, he's just like, oh, I'm getting
Oh my
kind of sleepy.
goodness.
I'm like, awesome.
I think I'm gonna try that tonight as I'm tucking kids in. I love that. I was thinking about my son, my oldest son, who I've mentioned. He gets dizzy when he gets dysregulated, and he lives in an apartment not too far from us. So if he gets out of sorts, he'll call me. He often can't necessarily think perfectly straight in that moment, right? And so I'll say, okay, bud, if you're standing, press your back against the wall. Or if you can sit. But, it's this grounding thing, because if you're dizzy, you need to really firmly, physically plant yourself so that it can kind of root you and make you feel steady. And so we do a lot of grounding, and it's funny, each time he'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, I should have known. But it's that not being able to think straight. But obviously what he can do is he calls me. And sometimes, like if I'm in a meeting or something, I'll just text back and say, I'm sorry, I can't answer the phone right now, but are you okay? And he'll say, I'm feeling kind of dizzy. And I'll say, sit down, lay down, ground yourself. And then once you feel a little more steady, pick the color red. Notice all the red things in the room. Just start to become more aware and present, because he starts to disconnect, So yeah, easy things, right?
Easy things. Or take a mind vacation. Take
Oh,
yourself to
clear it.
a
Yeah.
place where you remember it was lovely. So like the beach, put your feet in the sand at that beach and just remember what it was like to be there, what the air smelled like, and what were you looking at? What was the sunset like, or whatever,
Yeah,
and then before
brings
long,
back
that's just
feelings.
changed your mind completely.
Yep. It brings those same feelings that you felt, the feelings of comfort or soothing. You're actually feeling them. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's really a simple thing to do. So that's
Right.
great. Great idea.
So one other thing before we get off of these
I know.
strategies,
We could do
because
this
I
all
love these
night.
strategies. I know. A thing I discovered was laughing meditation. Have you heard of that?
No, tell me.
Laughing meditation, it turns out, this is neuroscience, fake laughing and actual laughing release the same neurochemicals.
Oh, I love that.
So we know that laughter releases dopamine and serotonin and makes us feel good, right? So if you have a good laugh, everybody says, oh, I just needed a good laugh.
Felt so good. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But you can actually fake laugh and give yourself the same neurochemical cascade. It's so awesome. So yeah, I teach people to fake
That
laugh.
actually makes a lot of sense, because there was a game that we used to play, and I think I even put it in the book as a strategy for families, where you lay on each other's tummy and you laugh. You let out a belly laugh, and it makes you laugh. So you start out kind of pretending or faking, but it domino effects into everybody is just laughing. But I love that you're putting in the whole neuroscience of it releases those chemicals that make us feel better. Boy, that's pretty awesome.
There's a lot, right? Neuroscience is bringing us a lot in this very basic way, right?
Yeah.
To just regulation doesn't have to be extreme. It doesn't have to be something you buy or you have to go do. It's just right here. It's right here.
I mean, that's it. I'm not a neuroscientist, and I never will be, but I don't need to be.
Right.
And that's the whole reason why I wrote the book. It's supposed to be made accessible. Most of the time when I'm writing or thinking or speaking or teaching, I'm really coming from the perspective of a parent.
Oh, me too. I mean, I pretty much have given up.
Yeah.
I've given up being a therapist. I'm just a parent now.
So
Don't
I'm
tell my
saying,
clients.
yeah, no, but it goes back to, listen, if I can do it and you can do it, this is not anything to be intimidated by at all.
Right. So as we're winding down here, do you have some last words you want to share with our listeners?
Well, okay. I guess if I were to leave some parting words, it would be something that I wish someone had said to me, about like, be gentle with yourself, give yourself grace. You're doing so much better than you think you are. And it's okay to make mistakes, all of that, right? I wish I had. And I just wish I was kinder to myself. I'm pretty good at that now, but I wasn't a long time ago. I really cared about what other people thought, and I cared about looking like the perfect family, and I cared about all the things that now I'm like, oh heavens, none of that mattered. And so I just share that vulnerability, like I just made so many mistakes, but I forgive myself for that, and my children forgive me. I've apologized a lot to my kids because, well, for one, it was the right thing to do, but for two, like, it's giving them permission to not be perfect and to make mistakes and to know what to do when you do make a mistake, right? You can have a do-over and you can survive the hard feelings. Sometimes I remember thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to survive this, but really it was just a hard emotion that I was scared of, when really, oddly enough, I needed to lean in to the emotion and walk it through rather than try to skirt around it, try to avoid it, try to pretend this wasn't happening. I needed to like sit in it and feel it and understand why it was there so that I could understand what I needed to learn from it and what I needed to do better next time, because the avoiding wasn't working.
Right.
All the things weren't working, so I just want to seriously give the biggest virtual hug to everybody out there, because I know, I get it. It's hard, and it's still hard. It's still going to be hard, but it's also just being present in it and embracing the hard gives me that opportunity. I wouldn't know joy had I not known hard, difficult, right? I wouldn't have appreciated it. I would have taken it for granted, but those moments of joy are so much sweeter because of the hard. So accepting both, that feelings really are just feelings. They're not good or bad. They're just what's happening, and they're temporary. So that whole like surviving, you can get through it kind of a thing.
Yeah. So, we have very similar learnings, I think, along our path. Our path has been long because we're about the same time in it. Some wisdom comes with that. And forgiveness is one of the things I did learn. And I've asked my children for forgiveness. They readily gave it to me. They had no qualms about saying, oh, Mom, we were difficult. My kids who are older now, Mom, we were difficult. We were hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, thank you for knowing that.
Yeah.
And then having them say, Mom, you've loved us this whole time.
Yeah.
You're the only person who loved us this whole time.
Oh my gosh.
And, that is really kind of true. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and that matters, right? Love matters.
Oh boy, does it ever matter? It matters.
Yeah. So, Ginger, thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I feel so honored to have you. I love you so much.
I ditto. So ditto. I feel the same.
So come back again sometime when you get your next book. Come back and we'll talk about your next book and any of your other adventures. I'd love to have you back.
I'd love to come back anytime.
That's great. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us here at Unmuted Love, where nothing is off limits, because your love matters. It isn't all that pretty, but sometimes it's really, really, really wonderful. See you next time. Hey parents, this is C. Get the help you need to end destructive and chaotic behavior in your home while parenting children from difficult beginnings. I know you need help, and the Love Plus parenting model actually works. I'm inviting you to work with me personally for 6 months in my virtual therapeutic parent program, and I guarantee you results, or 100% of your investment back. How is that for a blue ribbon deal? I'm looking forward to working with you. See you on the inside.
Stop for a minute. Stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head. Try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute. Who you want to be for a minute. Don't get over your head. You're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer.
Unmuted Love podcast is hosted by me, C. Eshelman, Attachment and Trauma Specialist at the Attach Place in Sacramento, California. Our podcast producer is the amazing Saya Clark, and our theme song is Nicer by Houses on the Hill, licensed through Epidemic Sound. Thank you for being such loyal listeners here on Unmuted Love. I'll see you all next week.
You'll be just fine.